one.
Is there a difference between filing business taxes with an October deadline versus an April deadline? If yes, what are the advantages, disadvantages of each?
All right, so we talk a lot about this. You know, if you want to try and get your return all done by April or even March 15th for your S corporations and partnerships, that's fine. You can rush to that. But, you know, a lot of our clients are going to have those syndication investments, things like that, or relying on other things like K1s. Those are notoriously not only late, but inaccurate. And so we are always going to recommend that you extend, and that would extend your April deadline out to October. Gives you more time to clearly see what's going on. And there could be other tax deductions we might be able to get to look at, even though we've closed year end. They are limited, not going to oversell that, but there are some things, but it gives you more time to get all things properly put in to its place. We talked earlier about bonus depreciation, cost segregation. You got to do that form 3115. This doing an extension allows you more time to get that study done. You can do that up till October if you didn't get it done before year, and maybe you never heard of cost seg before. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that extension.
Yeah, so for the business return itself, then there's things like SEP IRAs, there's things like 401ks, there's defined benefit plans that allow you to contribute and deduct them for last year, so long as the employer makes that contribution before it files its taxes plus extensions. So, you know, so I used to use an example. I shouldn't bash on the guy, but somebody was like, hey, I have an S corp. I've never been late. I always file March 15th. I was like, great. I would recommend that we extend it out. Even though you're done, let's just see if anything happens over the summer, right? Sometimes business goes up, sometimes business goes down. Sometimes I'm sitting on some extra cash. If I can lower my taxes for last year because I have some cash available to put into an employee 401k or add a defined benefit plan, I might do that. And by the way, we can add them even after the end of the year nowadays. And they said, no, I wanted to file on March 15th. And sure enough, it was right around September, which is when their tax return was due. They had extra cash and they were like, hey, I'd really like to do this contribution. Can I do this now? Because it's going to save me a bunch of money for last year. And I'm looking at them like, yeah, if we could go back in the time machine and change that, we could absolutely do it. But you were insistent on filing. Now do you understand why we don't do that? Lesson learned. And they were like, it was like $7,000 that it would have saved them. And they were just like, shoot, that sucks. Well, they could still, you know, they could still make more contributions for the current year, but they can't go back and fix last year. So I always tell people, if it's me, even if I had the return done, I'm probably sitting on it because I want to see what happens. Plus, if you have, if you're using a brokerage house, if you have 1099s coming in or K1s coming from investments, sometimes they're restated. In other words, you get something in April that was hurried because they're trying to do their year-end financials and get everything done. And then in June, they say we were actually mistaken. Here's what the actual numbers are. And if you already filed your tax return, you're going back and amending. And I would just rather not do that.
Yep.
So give yourself as much time. It's kind of like a teacher comes in and says, Elliot, your homework is due on Friday. But if you really want to, you can wait a week and it'll be next Friday.
Let's not do that. Go back to those days.
Yeah. Elliot's like, I'll do it on Thursday early. Right? No, sometimes it's not in your best interest. Sometimes it's better to say, hey, I wrote my paper. Maybe I'll edit it. Maybe I'll make sure nothing's changed. Maybe, whatever. You give it another once over. Sometimes you're just sitting on it and then you just do it. But you're giving yourself the chance to see if things changed. And that makes a big difference.
There's nothing to say that you can't go ahead and get everything turned in, and maybe they can do just a trial run. Just don't file.
Yeah.
And
they're just waiting. Hey, we'll file it. Let's schedule it for a week before the deadline or something like that. We'll just do it. Hey guys, if you like this snippet of Tax Tuesday, then I invite you to click the link and actually subscribe to become a Tax Tuesday member. Every other week we do these live, and you too can ask your questions, and myself and my team will answer your questions on the next Tax Tuesday.